Hey folks, welcome back to Mark Kelly Farm. Before we get on to today's topic, we went to the mail drop the other day and picked up some stuff that was in there. We wanted to go over that. We got a really nice letter from one of our huge subscribers, Kathy Krantz. Sent us a real nice little card and letter. I really appreciate all the outpouring of prayers and stuff like that during my health ordeal that we've gone through lately. Everybody's been very supportive. I love our subscribers. You guys are awesome. But Kathy sent us a real nice letter, and I appreciated that. To bring you up to speed on the health issues, I think I told you I went for a heart cath last week on Wednesday. Everything came out all right. They didn't find anything any more than 20% occluded. The doctor was not concerned about that at all. And because my gallbladder symptoms have pretty much taken care of themselves and have gone away, they've canceled that appointment as well. And I'm pretty much feeling I'm back to 100%. So it's been nice. Had a little bit of light duty after that procedure, which we did. But now we're back raring to go again. So the other thing we got in the mail was from my cousin Don and his wife Annette. They live in Texas, and they sent us these really cool coasters for the Benzebo out there. Have our logo on there. They're made out of some kind of stone. I don't know what they are, but it almost feels like a slate. But super cool. Sent us a set of 4 of those, and they must have found this in their area. It's the Nebraska Land Centennial from 1967. Really cool old plate. I don't know where they found it in Texas, but super cool. We love history, and this is going to be super neat to have here on the homestead. So thank you guys. Really appreciate it. We love hearing from all of our subscribers. So let's get to the subject of this video. So, to the subject at hand in today's video. It's going to be pretty controversial stuff, and it's going to draw some negative stuff in the comments, but you know me, I'm going to do it anyway. Alright, we've been teasing this electrical project for a while that we need to get done. Should have got it done a long time ago, but other priorities take precedence over some things. So anybody that lives in an older home or has purchased an older home knows that you end up with a lot of these things. See this outlet here? What do you see that's missing? Should be a little third hole here, right, for the ground plug. Well, a lot of your old houses were wired with a 2-wire Romex that did not include the ground wire. And you'll run into this in, like I said, in lots of old houses. And people ran electricity this way for years and never had a problem. Now the reason, we've got along with that for so long is anytime you had an appliance problem or something like that, something shorted out, generally it would pop your breaker or pop your fuse on your circuit, and it would cut off the power to that circuit, and you would remove the appliance, fix it or whatever, and then either put a new fuse in or redo your breaker, and then you're all good, as long as you didn't burn up your wires or anything like that. Now there's several solutions to remedying the 2-prong outlet with no ground, and we'll talk about those now. Now the problem we have in modern times is all of your plugs are 3-prong, like this one here. This plug here has the ground lug on the bottom, and most of your modern equipment, with the exception of maybe lamps or something like that, will have this 3rd plug here. Now what this plug does is if there's a problem inside your appliance and it shorts out or something like that, it will ground out here instead of grounding out through you when you touch it. But like I said, for a lot of years we ran without this 3rd prong here. Now, some people will do very bad things with that 3-prong plug, and I've seen it done in the past. What they'll do is they'll just cut off this 3rd prong, so this thing will go in the plug. However, with the newer appliances, they care what the polarity is on their plug. Unlike the old lamps and stuff like that, it didn't matter which way you put the plug in the outlet. If you've seen nowadays, one of these plugs is bigger than the other, and it's polarized because they do care which way the power comes into the plug. So because this has the 3rd prong on it, and it can only go one way into a modern plug, they have just made both of these prongs here the same width, because they know this plug can't go in upside down unless you cut this off, and that's where you cause the danger, and you're going to blow up your equipment or burn it up, because you've cut this off and you've put this plug in backwards. The polarity's wrong, and you're going to ruin your appliance. Now, one of the solutions is to replace the 2-prong outlet here with a 3-prong GFIC outlet. And you can do that and still be good with your local codes and stuff like that. Now, one of the issues with that, those outlets are about $30 a piece. And there's cheaper options to do, which we'll cover here in a little bit. But that's one thing you can do. And then if you have a whole circuit and you know where the power comes into that circuit, say we have multiple plugs like we do here in the kitchen, if you can find which plug that the power comes into first, put a GFIC outlet in that plug, and then every plug down the line you can put just a standard 3-prong outlet, because the first outlet will protect all of the other ones just like it does itself with that GFIC. So if you can do that, that's one way to get it done. And how you would do that if you knew they were all on the same circuit? You would take your face plates off after you turn your power off and check that it's good and off with either a circuit tester, or you can take an appliance that you know that works and plug into all those outlets, make sure it doesn't work. Plug it into a good outlet, make sure it does work, so you've got a decent test. And that's kind of a poor man's way of doing it, but if you can afford a circuit tester, I would recommend getting one of those. But once you confirm that they're all dead, take all your outlets off, and then remove your outlets from the wires, bare your wires, and then bend them to where they're nowhere near touching anything. And if you don't know your way around electricity, you may want to have a professional do this, of course, but I know enough to get myself in trouble. So once you've bared all the wires and you make sure they're not touching anything or not touching each other, you turn the power back on, and you come through with your tester and find out which hot wire is still live. All your other ones in the circuit should be dead besides that one where the power comes in. And that'll tell you which outlet that the power comes into first. And that's where you would put your DFIC if you're going that route. Another solution is to replace the wires in your house. Change out the 2-wire Romex to a 3-wire Romex with the ground. But if you don't have access, if you have a finished house, not all of us can afford to strip our house down to bare studs and start over with all new wires. Now, say, like we have the kitchen here, say you had an unfinished basement underneath your house where the wires come straight up into those outlets. Sometimes you can get down into your basement, you can turn the wires loose from the outlet, and you can pull those wires out straight down through the wall, tying your new wire to that wire, so as you pull it down through the wall, it's pulling the new wire in through the box, and it'll come out in your basement, and you can just keep feeding the wire till you get back to your circuit panel if you know what you're doing, wiring, say, a breaker panel or a fuse panel. But if you don't, again, have a professional do that. But at least you can do it done. It's a lot cheaper. You're not stripping walls and stuff like that. And you can run new wires if you have access. Now, another thing you can do to gain a ground, if you have metal boxes, the outlet boxes that are actually in the wall, if those are metal, and they have a metal clad conduit running to them from either the fuse panel or the breaker box, which is metal. So you've got a metal to metal contact, and those breaker boxes are always grounded when they're put in. You actually have a ground to that box. All you have to do is, at the hardware store, they sell a little green pigtail with an eyelet on it, and you just screw that into the box, and then you have that green wire for your ground that's actually a ground that's ran all the way to your fuse panel if you have that metal conduit. But not all houses have that metal conduit. Now, this next fix I'm going to show you is something that everybody does. It's the easiest, simple thing to do. It's not going to fix your ground problem, but it will allow you to use your appliances in all the other areas. And that fix is one of these. This is an adapter that goes from 2-prong to 3-prong. And you're going to see these all over the old houses because this is the fix that everybody uses. The problem is, this is designed to actually convert to a grounded plug by way of this little tab right here. So like we were talking before, if you have a metal box in here, the outside of your plug is metal, which contacts your metal box, and the inside of this screw hole for this screw right here is also a metal threaded area. So what you do is you take this screw out, you plug this into your outlet, and then you run the screw through this into your receptacle here. And then that gives you a ground from here to here. So you've got an added ground. But 9 times out of 10, this is not a grounded box. It's not a metal box. Or if it is a metal box, it doesn't have metal conduit run to it. And people are just using these just so they can plug in their appliances. And it still works. You're not making anything any more dangerous or anything like that than it already is. You still, you don't have a ground here already. So you're not making it any worse by using one of these. So you see a lot of people using these, and we use them here in our kitchen. But what I think is more dangerous about these is they never fit in the socket firmly. And then when you go start plugging things in on them, they get heavy and they kind of fall out or whatever. And then you get exposed prongs and such like that. If you got little kids grabbing and unplugging stuff, there's a chance that they could get a shock out of these. So I'm not a big fan of these. So I'm going to show you what I've done a lot, and I've never had any problem doing it. So the easy, cheap fix that I do is I will remove this outlet and replace it with this outlet. So that's going to cause people's head to explode right there. And there's going to be some negative comments on this video. But I've literally done this in every house I've lived in that I've ever purchased, and some of them that I even rented. Now, there's going to be a lot of electricians, if they get on here, they're going to say, that's not up to code, and you can't do that, that's illegal, and all this other stuff. But you look all over YouTube, you look all over these places, they won't tell you why it's a bad thing. They won't tell you why you can't do it. They can't tell you that it's going to, burn your house down or anything like that. Because I'm here to tell you, putting this in there is no more dangerous than using that the way it is now. Yes, you don't have an equipment ground, and you're still not going to have an equipment ground, but you're going to be able to use all your plugs without resorting to one of these little flimsy things that fall out of the wall and I think are more dangerous than what I do. Now, the biggest issue I think you would run into, because your equipment's just going to run like it always has, if you go to resell your home, and when the inspector comes in, any savvy inspector knowing the age of a home will know that there's probably the chance that there's some wiring in the home that's not up to code because of all the old 2-wire outlets. A lot of people have changed them or have done some weird things. So that keys them in when they're looking at older homes to check a little bit closer. Now what they do is they have a little unit that just plugs right into the outlet that will tell them whether it's grounded, whether it's the right polarity, all this other stuff. Now, there's things that people do to get around that, and a savvy building inspector, he won't be fooled by that either. And I'll show you what they do, and I'm not recommending that you do this because it's bad. So if you're not an electrician, you don't know. The white wires that connect to the silver screws on here are your common. It's called your common wire, which is basically a ground. The black wires that connect to the gold screws or the brass looking screws on the other side, those are the power. And any of your 120 appliances, that's how they work, is they run power through a loop to ground, and that's how they run. So this green screw here is your ground. So in a 3-wire Romex, your bare copper wire, this is the one that would go to this green screw right there. Having a hard time focusing, I apologize. So if you're not an electrician, you don't know that this white wire here goes to the same grounding lug in your breaker box as do these bare wires. They're all connected to the same bar down in your breaker panel, your fuse panel, whatever. These both go to the same ground. So what some people will do is they do what's called a bootleg ground. They'll run a wire jumper from here to the silver wire. It's called a bootleg ground. So the problem that creates, well, let me tell you why they do it first. They do that so when the building inspector comes in and plugs his little plug in here, it's going to show all as well. It's going to show that it's a grounded outlet. There's no reverse polarity, anything like that. And they're going to get good lights on their tester. Now, if you get one of those savvy building inspectors, he's not going to fall for that. He's going to know by the age of the house there's going to be issues. So if he gets all perfect lights on his little tester, he'll actually pull the cover off of that outlet, get in there with his little flashlight, and if he sees that bootleg ground, you just failed your inspection and you got to get that stuff fixed. Now there's some more dangerous issues involved in bootleg grounds, which is the real reason you don't want to be messing with that stuff. One of them is if there's an issue with your appliance and it shorts out, if you have that bootleg ground, sometimes instead of that power going to ground for protection, it'll heat up that appliance to where if you touch it, you'll get electrocuted, you'll get a shock, and you could die, obviously. The other issue is if you have a reverse polarity issue somewhere in your house. Say somebody has wired a plug backwards. Your older appliances didn't care. The ones that didn't have the polarized plugs, like light bulbs, and even some of your newer things like phone chargers and stuff like that, they don't have a polarized plug. You can plug that plug in the outlet either direction, it doesn't matter. But your polarized stuff, if you plug that thing in and there's a reverse polarity situation where that plug was wired in backwards, with that bootleg ground, you're going to send power to ground real quick and you're going to cause problems. Things are going to short out. There's also another problem with electrocution. Just completely stay away from those bootleg grounds. They are bad news. Now, I'm well aware that this is an issue, and if I go to sell the house, this will be an issue. So I'm well aware that if I go to have a building inspection, I got to put my 2-prong outlets or go buy some more 2-prong outlets. They're like $1.50 and put those back in. But at least I have the convenience of this 3-prong outlet while I'm living here in the house. Now, sometimes the only thing you need to be brought up to code is having some of these stickers right here that you put on the outlet that say no equipment ground. And in some areas that will suffice and the building inspector will be okay with that. Now in other areas, you can only put these on a circuit that also has a GFIC. So check the codes in your area to see what you need to do. So we're going to go ahead and replace this outlet. Power's out. I've double checked it. Even though we still have lights, that's a different circuit here in the kitchen than they usually are. But again, check and double check to make sure the power's off before you do any electrical work. So we're going to take the center screw out here, which is going to take this cover plate off. All right, we got our cover plate off. Now we need to take this screw and this screw out, and that will allow the receptacle to pull out of the box. All right, we got the plug out of the box, and you can see there's only 2 wires in here. There's no ground wire coming from that Romex there. Now, one thing you want to be very careful of when you're in an old house is the insulation on these wires, if it's old enough, will get brittle. And anytime you move the wire, that stuff will just kind of crack and fall off and leave you with an exposed wire. If you have that issue and your wire is that old, you've got problems, and you do need to call either an electrician or something like that, because you don't want to reuse those wires, because that's an extreme fire hazard. These wires here are still in good shape. I've already checked them. So all we got to do is remove the common wire over here and the hot wire over here and pull that receptacle off. All right, took the old one off, put the new one on. It was pretty easy because the wires already had the bend in them. Whenever you put the wires in, you want to make sure the wire goes around the outlet clockwise, because that's the way you're going to turn the screw to tighten it up, is clockwise. So as you tighten the screw, the wire pulls around in and gets kind of tighter. If you turn it the other way, the wire could want to spin out. Now it doesn't matter which lug you attach it to, because you see this little tab right here? These 2 lugs are connected on this side. So say you had this 2 wires, sets of wires coming in here, one set in, one set out to another plug, you would attach the other set of wires to the other screw. Now the only time it makes a difference what screw you attach to is you can break these little tabs off, so you can actually have 2 circuits running into each plug. Say you had 2 appliances that were drawing a lot of juice and you didn't want to put it all in the same circuit, you can run 2 wires into this box, each a different circuit coming out of your fuse panel or your breaker panel, and you can separate this plug from this plug. If you got 2 20 amp services, this plug can be, well, 15 amp. This plug could be its own 15 amp circuit. This plug could be its own 15 amp circuit, because you'd have 2 white wires, 2 black wires. But normally it's just one set of wires coming in, one set of wires going out. So it really doesn't make the difference which one you use. Now, of course, the green one down here, there's no wire for that, so we're not going to attach anything to that. We're going to shove our outlet back into the box, making sure the wires all fall up in there nicely, and then we'll tighten these screws to secure it in there. So out with the old, in with the new. So let's plug our KitchenAid mixer in over here, which we used here quite a bit, but we always had to have one of these. In fact, I just pulled it off of here. So let's plug it in. Works as usual. It's not going to blow up. It's not going to shock you. Everything's going to work unless this motor goes out. And like we said before, chances are if something like that were to happen, it'll pop your fuse or pop your breaker. But that's all there is to it. So that's all there is to it, folks. I know this is a very controversial subject, and there's going to be some stuff in the comments. But like I said previously in this video, we didn't make things any worse. We still don't have an equipment ground. We didn't have one before. So if you were using one of those adapters incorrectly, I think that's more unsafe than what we just did here. So till next time, stay safe, stay healthy. We love you guys. I'm going to peel off one of them little stickers and stick it on there, just in case that code is okay around here. Then we won't have to do any issues if we sell this place. But I don't plan on selling this place. This is going to be our lifetime property, I believe. So catch you on the next video.